We got pretty light beams hitting each other this week. In other words, peak Star Wars. And then they claim this is superior to Trek. Not even close. This is the Review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sakar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you, if you don't know them already. First up, we have Merv. How are you, man?
Fantastic.
And we have Mr. Taylor first. How are you?
Excellent.
And we have a voice only, Mr. Lord Deathman. How are you?
It is hot and humid where I am, but I'm going to try not to let that impact my review of this episode.
Yeah, indeed, we will try. Today we're going to talk about episode 5 called Night of the Acolyte. But before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video and subscribe to our channel. And join us on our forum, sakar.freeforums.net. Set up that account and get into our little community. And you can join us in our podcast or reviews. Consider this your final warning. After this point, we have spoilers. So if you haven't seen this week's episode yet, do that first and then check out our review. How to summarize this week's episode? You know what? I'm going to quote one of the champions present here. This week, we got a rumble in the jungle. That made me laugh. You know what? I'm going to start with you immediately, Mr. Lord Deathman. Rumble in the jungle. Did you like it?
Oh, wow. Quick impressions on a rumble in the jungle. And in all fairness, it was kind of like partially a forest and partially a jungle. So I guess in the interest of accuracy, we'll say it was a rumble in the jungle / forest. But
Yeah.
my overall impressions here is that while we did get a lot of dynamic fight choreography and we got what Star Wars is known for in terms of gripping lightsaber battles, I would say that this episode was not enough to make up for some of the fundamental story flaws in the mechanics of the story. There was certainly enough to keep people, even myself, entertained in the moment. But even a superficial sort of critical analysis after the fact reveals a show that is. You hear a lot of people say that, oh, I hate this show and it feels like AI wrote this, right? Like it feels like a computer stepped in and wrote this. I think The Acolyte actually is a perfect example of where one could honestly suspect that AI might have had something to do with it, and in that it feels like someone said, "Oh, here are all the things that I need to have in a Star Wars story. That could you put twins in there? Could we get like a great saber battle? It just feels like someone put a lot of ingredients into this soup without really thinking about the proportions and what it was going to be served with." So I think The Acolyte is the first show that I will say might have been assisted by artificial intelligence in terms of its formulation.
Yeah. Before we get deeper into details, I moved to Taylor, and Taylor made a comment about all the lights and the colors in all the sabers, and he said it felt like Christmas. So my question to Taylor is, and I already announced this on the board, do you like Christmas, Taylor?
I do like Christmas. I love Christmas. And I liked this episode almost as much as Christmas.
That's good. So you're positive. That's fine. But a little bit more than that?
Sure. Yeah. Everything is relative, and compared to the previous couple of episodes, this was much better. The action was really very good. I've seen a lot of criticisms online, including that the action was bad somehow, but no, the action was actually very well done. And a lot of the other criticisms I've seen online are not really not valid, but if those come up in our discussion, we can address them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was, like I said, the action was very good. It moved the story a little bit, at least, because now we know who the Sith is. yeah, we knew before, but yeah, it's official. We know who the Sith is. The twins have switched places again. Oh, and by the way, only a female showrunner would have a scene where a woman gives herself a haircut with a lightsaber in Star Wars. And it comes out perfect, and she looks exactly like her sister now. But
Yeah, I just wish there was like a character saying that's not how a lightsaber works. But yeah,
that's not how a lightsaber works. They brought in some stuff from the lore into this episode. I can never pronounce the name of this metal, the cortosis or something like that. Sounds like a disease that temporarily shorts out lightsabers, which this particular Sith had. That I think that's the first time it's ever been seen in live action. But I know it exists in Star Wars lore, which is good because that gave him a little bit of an edge. He had armor that protected him from strikes and also shorted out the lightsabers temporarily, which gave a little bit of verisimilitude to the fight of him fighting multiple Jedi at once. The acting, what there was of it, other than fighting in this episode, wasn't bad. I thought most of it was pretty good. I liked in fact, in addition to the Sith fighting all the Jedi, I thought the fight between Jeki and May was actually really well executed too. I thought that was a very entertaining fight they had. So overall, I'm actually very positive on this episode. Now, does that fix the problems of the show in itself? No, not yet, but it's a step in the right direction at least.
You can elaborate on that later. Merv also made a comment on the board, and he was referencing to the show as like a bag in the wind. Well, Merv, is the bag moving in the right direction for you?
Well, more specifically, I think I was calling out May's character as like her decisions are made as if she's a bag in the wind, just floating aimlessly in whatever direction she turns. So, we could talk more about her later, but as far as this episode goes, back whenever episode 1 and 2 came out, I thought, well, the combat here was really good. Everything else is a little bit shaky, but the combat's really good. And then 3 and 4 had like almost no combat, and those episodes kind of sucked. So now we get episode 5, and it's a whole bunch of combat, and I thought it was really good. So whoever's behind the combat, choreography, and that sort of thing, whoever's designing this combat needs props. Like, they're doing their job, even if nobody else in the room is. They're at least doing their job, and I know that they're doing their job well. So yeah, this episode being like 75% combat really helped it. I loved all the action sequences in this, even the beginning one where it was kind of like hard to see. I thought that was a good first one because it left you wanting more and better sequences, which I think we got like in the next couple of sequences. But unfortunately, once the action stops, they have to go back to dialogue and rely on the writing, and that's kind of where things start falling apart again for me. But I like Taylor. I think I'm much more positive on this episode than not. I love that we trimmed some of the fat off this cast as well, and the reveal, as 100% expected as it was, I thought Manny Jacinto handled that. I think I'm saying his name right. Handled that, like, that aspect of it really well. So yeah, I got a lot of good things out of this episode.
Okay, that's good to hear. Taylor, we were talking. Now you can elaborate on how this episode affects the show and stuff like that, positive, negatives, etc., etc. But I do want to ask you, in general, does this action-packed, sort of more than okay episodes elevate the show, or is it just like, okay, this was fun, but I'm still nowhere when it comes to story, dialogue, plot, whatever is going on, all the complaints we had in the previous weeks? Is that still valid, or how do you see this?
Complaints are still valid. However, I do think this episode did elevate the show somewhat, slightly. Now, of course, they have to continue to do that. And first of all, if I hear Soul one more time say, "I will explain," and then not explain, I really want him to explain. Okay, I really want to know what happened And who killed all the witches? Because I mean, it's looking more and more like the Jedi did something to cause their deaths, whether it was intentional or unintentional. We don't know. But I would really like to get over that particular hump to get on with the story.
Yeah, but that
in
that they will
present day.
do. They will do in episode 7, of course, because the second to last episode. Then is the big reveal, and then we get a beam in the sky kind of finale, of course, because
Right,
that's how those shows are set up.
Probably right. Hopefully they'll continue to ramp up the action. I'm not expecting the next episodes to have as much action as this one, but I hope they at least keep some level of action. I mean, I'm curious to find out what happens with Osha now that she's in the hands of the Sith. And by the way, I saw some people online saying that the Sith thinks she's May. No, he doesn't. There was no indication that he thought that was May lying there. First of all, it's got Osha's haircut, it's got Osha's tattoo, and the Sith is not a complete idiot. Okay, so he never said he thought that was May. He just said, "Aren't we strange people?" or something, something to that effect.
But
So
are you now
I
suggesting?
think he's holding her hostage now, or going to try to turn her into a Sith or something. Yes.
Are you now suggesting that Sol is a complete idiot? Because I don't think he is seeing May as who she is.
Yeah, I'm hoping that during that massive fight, he took a few shots to the head, and that's what's causing him to not be able to know that that's that's May right away. But don't worry, the best character in the show, Basil, he's on to her. He's gonna let us. He's gonna save the day. But I'm hoping that his Jedi powers will start warming up again after he got hit in the head a few times, and he'll sense the disturbance in the Force or whatever that takes to know that that's not the woman you've known for years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and you can now elaborate on your thoughts.
Yeah. Again, on some of the action scenes, and I don't want to just keep saying great action, because that's you can't build a whole show on great action. But I thought Jackie's death was pretty impactful, actually, and I thought it was actually kind of cool that the Sith. I have to rewatch it again, but he seemed to have a light dagger hidden inside of his lightsaber that he pulled out, and then he had two, and he did the stabby with her. Okay, but I wasn't expecting her to die, so kudos on that. As one of the few things in the show that's happened so far that I wasn't expecting. Wasn't expecting her to die. And then after she died, I knew it was a good chance that the other guy would probably die too. Yorn, is that his name? The other Jedi. But I am kind of surprised that they went ahead and killed both of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was bad about it? I've seen a lot of people complain about May. In the previous episode, she had decided to surrender, and then in this episode, she fought not to be captured by the Jedi. However, I don't think that's really a valid criticism. The valid criticism is that she decided to surrender at all in the first place. Last episode, that was just ridiculous. But if you remember in the last episode, when she told Orem, or the Sith, that she was going to surrender, he said, "Well, the Master is going to kill you," and she said, "No, he won't be able to find me," or something to that effect. Well, in this episode, he shows up, he found her, so her surrendering was contingent on him not being able to find her. So I understand her changing her mind at that point, because he found her, he was killing all the Jedi. Surrendering to the Jedi was not a really good plan at that point. So I don't consider that a valid criticism that she changed her mind again at that point. Like I said, the writing in the previous episode is open to lots of criticism as far as I'm concerned. I mean, everything. I mean, this is good. This mostly all took place at night. It was when Osha and May faced off with each other at the very end, when they cut to the establishing shot of the sun rising, to let us know that the title of the episode was Night, and night's now over. But it's a good thing they have a really bright full moon on that planet, because we could actually see what was going on all night long there, and that's good. They actually did a good job with the lighting, and also it helped with the effect with the lightsabers of the glow on their faces and all of that. So I mean, this was really just an action episode. Okay, the OSHA put the kick me sign on the Sith's back to draw the space moths into attack. And okay. I got it. I mean, at least they did set up and pay off with it. They had alluded to them being attracted to the light in the previous episode, so that was decent writing. The whole not making sure he was dead thing kind of rubs me the wrong way. But again, Star Wars has always been at that level of pulp type writing, so that didn't really bother me either. Like I said, overall, I really don't have a whole lot to criticize about this episode. Other than I'm assuming a few things for the giving it the benefit of the doubt as to again why Soul doesn't know that that's May, even though he has Jedi power and can read minds and all that. I'm assuming because he was injured and worn out and hit in the head several times.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even get headbutted with a helmet in one scene, if I remember. That's probably screwed up his force altogether. But yeah, I mean, like I said, overall, I think it's a good episode. Now, again, one episode does not a season make, so hopefully, now that May will be discovered right away, and that means Soul will have to deal with May while the Sith is dealing with OSHA, and I think that might provide some writing opportunities for a little bit, dichotomy. But I hope they don't wait, too much longer to tell us exactly what happened. And I'm also glad that, even though we all knew, most of us knew it, who the Sith was. I'm really glad they didn't throw a curveball and make it one of the mothers, because I think that would have been pretty lame. I mean, I'm no writer, and maybe they could have made it really cool, but I think that would have been pretty lame. So I'm glad it's this guy. Now I want to find out more about this guy though. Other than he has force power and he wants to use it the way he wants to use it and doesn't want to follow Jedi rules. But I'd still like to find out more about him. But yeah, I mean, overall, like I said, I'm really pretty happy with this episode in and of itself.
Okay. Well, it's nice actually to say some positive things about the Acolyte, because we have been negative quite a lot, and it's nice we can say something positive. Lord Deathman, the stupidest criticism I saw online was some people saying, hey, there's 7 Jedi and no one is sensing the Sith nearby. But then in the prequels, we had Senator Chancellor Palpatine sitting in rooms full of Jedi and nobody ever sensed it. So that was pretty stupid. Let's not resort to that kind of criticism, but can you see where they come from? Or
No, not at all. I think that kind of criticism it's indicative to a certain type of fan who just wants to have encyclopedic knowledge of a particular world and the understanding of its mechanics, and that's more important to them than the drama. So if you establish a rule in the mind of this kind of fan, then this rule should be applicable in every single situation, while not just fundamentally understanding that, hey, if these guys could sense each other all the time, you would literally have no drama, right? Like everybody would be forewarned about everybody else, and you couldn't tell a story in which you could anticipate some suspense or surprise. So not only is it kind of feels like the people who are levying this criticism know that, and they're just trying to use it to say this is a bad show because it doesn't follow quote unquote the rules, and that somebody should have been able to sense that so and so and whatever and whatever. So I take very little stock in those types of criticisms.
Well, did this action, which was more than okay, we had more than okay action in this episode. Did it at least elevate the show for you a bit, or is it still as bad as? Because I know you're like me, a Trekkie. We care for things like character development.
We do. Oh God, we do.
Some criticism of society, or at least some deeper story going on. So yeah, I can imagine this is not your specific cup of tea, even though enjoyable.
Yeah, I want to say straight away that I am neutral to negative on the show. I haven't quite crossed the barrier over into positivity. But there are a couple of good things that I want to point out and start my in-depth review with. In order to kind of illustrate the idea that I'd like to put forth, I have to make a quick diversion to talk about a film in the Matrix trilogy called The Matrix Reloaded. At one point in that film, Neo is approached by a character called the Oracle, her bodyguard, and the bodyguard is a guy named Seraph. And Seraph is, what you might expect out of like a typical or maybe even stereotypical Asian guy who's kind of put into a martial arts film just to be there to do some fighting. But when the two characters are first introduced, they have a very short, pleasant exchange. And then Seraph says, "Well, I have to apologize to you, Neo, in advance." And Neo says, "Well, for what?" And Seraph then says, "For this." And then they start to get into an overly choreographed wire work fight that happens across like two lunch tables. And, it looks really engaging. It was well choreographed. And by the conclusion of the fight, Seraph says, I think he says words to the effect of, "I'm sorry I had to do that." He reiterates his apology, but I had to know. And it's insinuated that what he meant is, I needed to know that you were the one, and the only way that I could prove that would be through fighting you, through us engaging in that kind of body language. I could understand that you were the one, that the chosen one and the best fighter, amongst us. I make that point because it wasn't really done well in that particular movie. Most people find that fight completely pointless and a weird interruption in the story. Like, why did that happen? But I say that to say that the idea that you could understand someone through the way that they actually fight or engage in combat is a valid one, even if they didn't execute it well in The Matrix Reloaded. I make another quick diversion. At the end of the Phantom Menace, when we have the big fight between Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn, and and his Padawan, who is the most famous character in Star Wars, whose name I've forgotten at this moment.
Obi-Wan
Help me
Kenobi.
out, guys. Obi-Wan Kenobi. We see them engaged in high stakes combat, right? Where the action keeps getting broken up by these laser walls that drop down, right? And every time the wall comes down, Qui-Gon Jinn kind of goes into a quiet and contemplative sort of Zen meditation, while Maul, who has been waiting for this moment his entire life to face off against Jedi, is more than prepared and ready. A character who has said zero dialogue throughout the entire film. Now I understand his character through this choreography. He is going back and forth and he's pacing like an animal who's caged because this laser wall is kind of cutting off his ability to kind of fight and dispense with these two who he feels are weaker and inferior to him. Qui-Gon Jinn is going more into a contemplative state. He's not relying on violence or aggression. He wants to channel the force to be able to be as effective as he can be. So I learn about those characters through that fight choreography. And I sincerely believe that it is possible, when you get a great choreography, visual effects team that come in and do their job extremely well. I'm going to tell you guys, I learned more about the character of Jackie through her fighting in this episode than I ever learned about her through her stilted exchanges with Saul and these pseudo, I'm attracted to you exchanges with OSHA, whatever kind of chemistry they were having there. I learned that a Jedi Padawan whose name is Jackie is a relentless fighter. Right? Like, it doesn't matter. You could be a Sith Lord, you could be an Acolyte, and she's just ready, right? And through that choreography, I'm like, wow, this is a cool character. Drop kicks OSHA in the face, like hammered this guy with the hilt of her. She got the guy's mask off. We're talking about a Padawan. Like Stone Cold Jedi came to this fight unprepared and died, got shish kebab at the beginning of it. But Jackie's like, you know what? I'm kind of ready. And her ferocity, her focus, her concentration in this moment gave me more about her character than the writers have done since the series have begun. That's bad for the writers' room. It's horrible that they had to let the visual effects team and the stunt team kind of make the character. like make me care about the character, and then immediately kill her upon the direction, I assume, of the writers. So I want to give a lot of praise in this episode. It wasn't just Jackie. There were a couple of characters where I feel like, oh wow, as a fighter, Yord, I'm getting it. Like he came to a knife fight or a gunfight with a saber, and he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready for this guy. I'm looking at his moves, and they're real stale and stilted, and he's trying to fight this guy with like age-old Jedi tactics, not putting much emotion into it, when all that Khmer is going to do is use passion, violence, rage, right? The emotions were really, really close to the surface of that choreography, and I think it made the episode much, much better than it deserved to be. They were giving the writers the assist that they needed to give them to make the show actually even somewhat valuable from a standpoint of storytelling. And I will also say that Vidal Sassoon could have benefited from stocking up on lightsabers as a hairstyling tool, because that moment was just outrageous, right? Yeah. But if I go through this, in terms of my points, that's really what I wanted to get across, that idea that we finally got this big fight episode idea, and it almost acts as a crutch for the writer's room in terms of being to elevate the story and the characters through the way they fight and through their ideas about how to confront this new threat that none of them have ever encountered before. And then all of them die. They all turn out to be red shirts the moment you get a little bit more of a feel for them as to who they are, who they might be as a person. They're killed because someone wants to close some weird loop in canon because nobody ever saw Sith, so we got to make sure all these guys die, right? It has shock value in the moment, but absolutely makes no sense from the point of view of trying to tell a coherent and logical story. I still continue to have issues with May's character, the actress who is playing May, again, Amandla Stenberg. She seems like a very competent actress, but the only time she's actually doing any real acting that communicates emotion, ironically, is when she's acting against herself. When May and Osha are having exchanges, you see the drama, you see the conflict. They're on two sides of an ideological divide, and that forces Stenberg, I think, to ramp up her acting. Whereas when she's talking to Saul or when she's dealing with Jackie, this is nothing. I mean, like 15 Jedi just died here, and you're worried about your pop-up toy flashlight thing. Oh, please forgive me. You're asking forgiveness from an inanimate object that you're planning on the back of this guy's back, but 15 dudes just died before for you on your behalf, and you got nothing to say about that. That's weird. Either through acting or writing, somebody should have kind of been on top of that. But again, not there as far as the show goes. I feel that this is overall, it's still very much a failure for the Star Wars universe, and does feels like it was cobbled together with bits and pieces of cool ideas, but nobody really sat down to make the story mechanics work. So that is my take on it.
Yeah, totally understand that. Taylor, quick follow-up before I move to Merv.
Yeah, I remembered one other thing that made me roll my eyes. Osha stopped Saul from killing the Sith. He had his lightsaber right to his throat, and she did the no, that's not what Jedi do or whatever. Only to 1 minute later feed him to giant space moths, which he survived. It didn't make any sense at all. She should have just let him kill him. I don't understand why. If she wanted him dead, is it just she wanted him to be eaten by giant space moths, or what? It didn't make any sense. But it was that whole, no, we don't kill helpless people. Well, he ain't helpless. He's a friggin' Sith. He can kill you with his mind. Okay, kill him already.
Yeah.
So that just made me eye roll, but not so much that she saved him. Although that made me eye roll that she saved him. But that 1 minute later, she tried to kill him again by herself.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then again, there's 3 more episodes, so killing a Sith Lord in episode 5, leaves us with 3 filler episodes, which is not a good idea. Anyway, especially with the level of show we already have. Merv, were you in any way surprised who the Sith Lord was? Or was it the most obvious reveal of all time in any show ever made?
I will say that I don't even want to say it was surprising, but it was such a heavy-handed situation before the reveal. Like last episode, it was just so on the nose that it's like they can't really do this, right? Like it's, I mean, it's too obvious. It's the too obvious choice. It's the red herring in the room. It's the expected, killer. It's the person everyone's already pointing fingers at. Like there's no real surprise there. Like why even have him wear a mask at this point? You know what I mean? So the reveal, yeah. So the reveal did nothing really as far as like the actual reveal. It was just like, okay, go ahead, start talking, do your thing. And I will say that once he did start talking, I really like the way he handled the dialogue and that sort of thing, which is not something a lot of the other characters have been able to do well. But I do think that he, Manny Jacinto or whatever, handled the dialogue for his character in this episode pretty well.
Yeah, but handling dialogue in Star Wars is a thing. So anyway, but
right. I'm just saying, it's the well polished turd out of the toilet bowl of the Acolyte's dialogue selection. So,
but okay, did you besides the show you said 75% action?
Yeah, I mean it just felt like it was one action sequence after action sequence after action sequence.
I agree. But those 25% that was not action, did you like it, or is it the same as before? Like not really good.
So I think the big problem is that I don't think we have much more information than we did outside of just confirming who the bad guy is. So we still have questions about Saul and what he got into. We still have. I mean, I am at a total loss as to May's motivation and decision making in this entire show. I think, like, I was thinking, and I even tried to look up a list, like, who is the worst written character that has ever existed, and I can't think of one that I like less than May in this show. just based on her own in-universe decisions that she makes, I just don't understand what her motivations are at any given time. Like even in this, I understand if she falters a little bit on wanting to turn herself in, Jackie drop kicks her and starts this, aggressive fight. I can understand wanting to like not give in to that. But later on, whenever it's like, hey, your master's here, and he's literally trying to stab you as he's fighting off two other Jedi, and your first instinct isn't to help these Jedi try to deal with this situation, it's to run away, and then run away, and then run away. And it was just constant running away. And I don't know. I just like pick a side. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what this character's here for at this point. Just get rid of her. And then the end didn't make any sense to me. I don't know what she's up to. I never know what she's doing. I feel like it's the Wedding Crashers scene I never know what she's doing in there. I don't know what her plans ever are in these situations, because she just changes her mind willy-nilly, it seems like. And then at the end, it's like, well, what are you planning on doing? You could have killed Saul already if that's your game. He was knocked out. You walked up and he was basically coming to. Like, you could have just ran over and stabbed him. Wouldn't have been hard. You could have done that. You could have went and found you could have tried to help the Jedi against your evil master if that was your game. I just don't know what she's doing, and that reflects the writing, I think, not filling me in on what this character, who is presumably a main character, what her motivations are and what she's trying to get out of this whole situation. And I do think, just based on the way that the episodes are like directed, it seems like they're in pairs. There's like 4 directors that do 2 episodes each. In episode 3, which was the big flashback episode, that director also did episode 7. So I'm expecting episode 7, which is the penultimate episode of the series, to be the reveal of what really happened 16 years ago. I don't know how much we'll care at that point in the game. I'm hoping I'm still invested in the story at all, or if it even matters, at that point. Because like I said, from like episode 1, May as a character, like, she's evil. She's trying to kill innocent people in episode 1. I'm not going to sympathize with that character. So I don't really know what's going to change about that. The only thing that might change is if they reveal that, and I do think they're kind of hinting really strongly towards this, that Saul might be more evil than we're led to believe. Like that he has actually got a lot of skeletons in his closet. And I'm almost not even sure like if he's wants to get rid of the skeletons. Like he might turn out to be a little more nefarious. You know, I think they're playing with that a lot. I don't know how they're gonna make sense of it, but they're really leaning into Saul having a really dark past, and I think that's gonna tie into Kamir's past as well. Like maybe it was a similar situation where the Jedi raided a planet and slaughtered a bunch of people, and oh, here's Kamir, and it's the same exact story as Osha and May, but a couple years earlier or something. I don't know. But so I guess that's the action really good. I loved every sequence. I have to agree with Lord Deathman. Like the fighting in this made me really like Jecki as a character more than obviously the previous 4 episodes ever could. And I was, of all the characters to die, I was kind of like, yeah, you could have kept her around. I didn't care at all about Cord or Yord or whatever his name is. Like even in this episode, I thought he was just really dumb. There's a scene where Osha tells him like, turn your lightsaber off, and he's like, why? And it's like, don't you remember the bug that just attacked you like 3 hours ago? Like you hear this chittering in the trees and you have to like confirm it before you just trust that she's telling you good advice. I don't know, it's just like little things like that bug me. But that, I think that's a compilation of like all the little things from the previous 5 episodes. It's like it's more forgivable whenever there's less of a track record, and now that there's more of a track record, it's like every little thing kind of stands out as like, why do they keep doing stupid things? But overall as an episode, I love the combat. I just don't know, it elevates the combat for me, but it almost feels like it's a separate thing from like I feel like I'm going to look back on this show, at least right now, and say like, I like the combat. Didn't really like anything else. I don't know if it does anything for like the lore of Star Wars for me. I don't know if there's going to be many characters from this that I'm going to take away going, I really love that character, I hope they show up in something else, or we get a prequel with them in it, or whatever. But as of right now, like I can just look at this episode as a highlight of the combat, and then maybe they'll resolve some things as far as the storyline goes that makes it really interesting and unique. But good combat. On everything else.
Okay. We have 2 follow-ups. Lord Deathman raised his hand first. So, Lord Deathman.
Yeah, I wanted to quickly really emphasize what Merv was saying about I don't really care about May or Osha, the supposedly the main characters of this story called the Acolyte. I don't care about them because their motivations seem to be completely contrarian from moment to moment. And they seem kind of to have very limited agency in a story that is supposedly supposed to focus on them. So props to Merv for really bringing that home. I don't care about either of them.
Taylor, you also had a follow-up. Do you care?
Yeah, we'll get to that one in a second. But as Merv was talking about the dialogue, I actually thought the Sith, like he said, the dialogue was actually good. I thought the actor did a really good job.
Yeah,
I see some people saying like he's too young and all this stuff, but no, I thought he did a really good job. And one of my favorite parts was when Jecki died, and Saul said, "Jackie," and he goes, "Was that her name? Or was that its name?" He said, "Was that its name?" And then Saul says, "She was a child," and he goes, "You brought her." Which is true. You put a saber into this girl's hand and took her out to hunt criminals with you. Okay, so don't pull the child card on me here, Saul. That was one thing. And there was something else I was gonna follow up on too, and now I'm forgetting.
Well, do you care?
I guess that was. Let me put it this way. Imagine this was pro wrestling. This episode was the in-ring stuff. the stuff that goes on outside the ring and backstage. I think, yeah, not as entertaining as the in-ring stuff for me, anyway. Okay.
Yeah. Maybe they should get that guy to write the scripts for the Acolyte. Maybe it's better then. But anyway. Well, that I think we have unpacked enough here. Let's do a rating for episode 5, Night of the Acolyte. And I'm gonna start with you, Merv. Merv, give me your number for this episode 1.
I'll put this at a 7 out of 10. It bumps it back up a little bit. You know, props to the Sith's arm. He didn't skip arm day ever.
Mm-hmm.
His arms were jacked in this episode. 7 out of 10. The combat really, really saves. I mean, it might even save this series at this point, but really, really makes this episode work really well.
Okay. Lord Deathman, can I have your number?
Absolutely. I think I'm teetering between a 4 and a 5. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, I do think that the combat was helpful to the series overall because it helped me to understand some of the characters. But I still can't say that overall I'm very invested or engaged by the drama of the show. So it's a 4.
Okay, fair enough. Taylor?
Yeah, I'm going to give this episode an 8 because the action was really, really good. And if this were an action show that had scenes like that in every episode, and that's what they were doing, it would work a lot better. Now there were a couple of moments where they cut away from the action, and that always bugs me. Like right at a key moment, they would cut away from the action and cut to something else. But there was so much action in this episode that it really didn't bother me that much because they kept getting back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Going forward, one thing I'm hoping that they do not make the Jedi too bad, too evil in this. I do not want a humongous deconstruction of who has been the good guys in this universe since 1977. Okay. So I hope they have some restraint and they don't go overboard with that. But I'm a little bit worried about that.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go 6 out of 10. I think the action was just enough to give it a passing grade. But it was the rest was severely lacking again. I mean, there was no death. It was just shiny lights in the jungle hitting each other, and how much fun that can be. If you rewatch it, there's nothing else in it. I mean, it's quite hollow, and yeah. So a 6 out of 10 just because it was fun to watch. But that's basically it. I need more. And well, you guys already unpacked what I need more, so I don't need to elaborate on that. Anyway, this will conclude this week's episode of the Review of Champions for episode 5 of the Acolyte. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, help us out, like and share this review, and subscribe to our channel. And if you really want more of us, join our forum at socardofreeforms.net. We would love it if you do that. Soon we will drop episode 7 of the Star Trek project, and our review for Deadpool and Wolverine is also on the horizon next month, but next month is actually tomorrow already, so that's good. For now, I want to thank you all also on behalf of our champions and wish the Force to be with you always. Bye.